everyone. Welcome to today's episode on How to Real Estate. Today we have Joy Knight, who is a member of the sales team. Joy is a local realtor here in Cherokee County, Tahlequah, Oklahoma, and Joy is on track. Well, that's not true either. Joy on average closes more than 30 homes per year.
Yes.
Did I say that right? Boy, that was a long way to say it. Jill is just like, oh.
Edit that.
No edits. No, we're going straight through. Okay. Welcome, Joy.
Hi.
Yes. So the reason I have Joy on today is because she does close well over 30 homes per year. As of right now, she's closed more than 30. So obviously she's going to do much better before the end of the year. But the reason we have her on today is we want to talk about things that if you are looking to purchase, these are questions that most buyers want to know. And sometimes what I find is buyers don't know what they're supposed to be asking.
That's so true.
Yes. Yeah. And so these are things that Joy typically will get the information for or find it once she knows that you're interested in a property. Now, on the flip side of that, we love listings. We love working with sellers. And we believe that every seller should try to have as much of this information available before the buyer walks in the front door.
Absolutely. It's so much easier, and it kind of creates a little bit more sense of urgency to take that next step. But when you're just trying to get all the info and it takes several days, then that buyer might kind of be like, well, they might not be as excited about it. So it's easier just to have the info up front for sure.
I love that you say that, because that's exactly what I tell my seller is when the buyer is in the home and they like what they're seeing and they say, blah, 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 how much is this or where is that? If we can answer all of their questions while they're in the home, then we're able to move on to start talking about financing and what kind of an offer, as opposed to, let me track down the listing agent, then she will track down the seller or he and get the information. Could take a couple of days, and by then they've bought the neighbors for sale by owner.
Yeah. Exactly. That had all the info.
Exactly. Good point. So what are some of these questions? Like, what do you think the number one question that the average buyer starts with?
The first question I get asked is about utilities almost every single time, and not just what they are, what companies and everything, but how much they cost every month on average. Just because when, we are in a little bit higher price range right now, and so when they're trying to budget, it's a little bit of a comfort, I think, for them to know that.
Okay, and we both have our own lists, so we're going to compare and see who has left something off. So I have average cost of utilities. We also find that they want to know who the provider of the utilities are. And I think that even though this is in that category, the first question that I typically see is, who is the internet provider?
Yeah, that's like, okay, that it kind of
it's still a utility, absolutely.
I think people kind of think of it, even though it's a separate thing,
but it is it's a monthly spend.
Yeah. So they definitely want to know who is going to provide it, if there's like fiber optic, that kind of thing, the little more detail than just does it have internet, because most places do. So
almost everyone does now. Yeah. And then I always like to educate, if you're in the rural area, and not just, this doesn't apply just for rural, but do you know how to tell if fiber optic is in the neighborhood?
I have a guess.
It's the black honeycomb looking thing on the, Jill, did you learn something? On the electric pole, it looks like it's about that big around and about that tall, and it kind of looks like a honeycomb.
Yeah.
But just a big black honeycomb.
Like an accordion.
That's I think honeycomb, she thinks accordion. So on the electric poles. Now, it doesn't mean that particular house has it, but if you see it on that block, you're much more likely to have access to it.
Yes, get on the list to get it out there, because it's great.
It's the best. Yes. Love it. Okay. So utilities, average cost of utilities. Now, I'm going to go on a rant. Okay. I told Joy I just need to borrow her for 15 or 20 minutes. So I try not to rant too long. Here's the thing, guys. When you ask me what the average utilities are, I want you as a buyer to be super cautious. And here's why. If I have a very frugal retired couple who travel half the year and shut everything down and turn everything off, their average utilities are going to look amazing compared to if you are a single person buying a home where maybe it's a stay-at-home parent with 4 children and every light in the house is on and every item is being used through.
Device.
Yeah, so it doesn't necessarily mean that your utilities are going to go that way. Like if somebody buys my home, you don't want to know what my average utilities are because that's the one area I will never skimp in.
Yeah, yeah.
I will skimp in other areas, but not, I got to have it hot or cold when I want it hot or
Sacrifice
cold.
that AC.
Right, but some people I will go in to list their home and I will literally be sweating.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, turn the AC on, and I'll say, does your AC work? Oh, yes, but we don't turn it on unless it gets over 90, or what? And I'm like, oh my goodness, not me, not me. So just keep in mind that that's not necessarily, or it shouldn't necessarily be a deal breaker. Agree?
Yeah, agree. For
Okay.
sure.
Okay. So number 1, about utilities and internet.
Yeah,
What are some of the other most common asked questions?
The air conditioning age.
Oh, I didn't have that on my list. You got me. But as I work with sellers, that is something I ask. So I should have had that on my list. Okay, 1 point, Joy. No points, Edna. Okay, I do think that that is important. Again, I don't necessarily think that the age of the AC should be a deal breaker.
Right.
And here's why. I have found that any AC unit that was installed prior to 1990 typically may go longer
Oh, what is that?
than the ones that were installed in the mid-2000s.
That is so true.
Do you agree?
Yes, and I don't understand why that's the case. It's so strange.
Yeah, I think it's called mechanical malfeasance. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Jill looks very impressed. We're going to go with that. So there is a theory that refrigerators back in the day, a company went out of business because their refrigerators were built so well that no one ever needed to replace it. I think that's a thing, seriously.
Yeah,
and so the AC unit companies, not all of them, don't be coming at me if you own an AC manufacturing company, but some of them have figured out that, unfortunately that particular age group on average, and I do think also we had a building boom, so they were cranking them out, making them, and then there's a different manufacturing guideline now where the SEER, that's SEER, and it has to do with the energy efficiency. Anything below a 12 SEER, you can't find those anymore, you can't get parts, so sometimes they have to be replaced. Again, don't come at me if it's actually an 11 or a 13. I don't remember the specifics, but those are some of the reasons why. So don't necessarily walk away. Now, if the AC unit was significantly older, how do you offset that? What are some ideas?
So we've done like where we negotiate either a service guy coming in and making sure that it's working correctly, adding freons, that kind of thing, or negotiating in a home warranty that can help cover that expense. So it's not a guarantee, but it will help.
It'll typically get you through the first year, hopefully, and so that's great.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's usually about it.
Okay. Love that. Okay. What else?
Let's see. We said internet info. I get asked about the age of the roof, which is sometimes in the disclosures, not always. So if you know that, the info is great to have.
Yeah.
Because that's a thing for sure.
Yeah. And I will tell you that I think across the board, disclosures are getting more specific and brokerages on requiring these areas to be filled in. But filling it in may say unknown, because when you purchased the home 8 years ago, if you didn't push to get the information and the disclosure you used was blank or they didn't know, then unfortunately there's just no way to know that.
Yeah, that's
So,
true. Yep.
Okay, very good.
Oh, and then the warranties on air conditioning units and the roof and, those kind of things. Brand new kitchen appliances, they get curious about the warranties for sure.
I love that. I love that. That might be something I need to start adding, because when the roof is new, most of the time it's a transferable warranty. I'm going to say I don't think I've ran into any that weren't transferable. But what you've got to keep in mind is that just because the roof is new, like they say 1 year, maybe Cousin Bob put the roof on. And maybe Cousin Bob knew what he was doing and did a great job, but there's still no warranty from Cousin Bob.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, I get asked that a lot.
Okay.
What else? And then I have just some like really weird kind of specific things to our market that I think I get asked. I get asked what kind of trees and flowers are on a property. And I have no idea.
Oh my gosh. Now, I know a fruit tree when I see it. And I know the peach tree. I know exactly which one is a peach tree.
Right, yeah.
The other ones, I just know they're a fruit tree. Yeah. So I'm like, it's a fruit tree, but don't ask me which one unless it's peach.
That's one I get asked like very rarely, but it comes up. And, the flowers. And then if it's in a flood zone or not, that comes up too.
Which is super, super important. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And guys, that is required to be disclosed on a disclosure. It is something that we can check on the MLS, but here's what we've found out since we've had 2 500-year floods within the last 20 years, we have found out that those have changed significantly. So, excuse me, gets me all worked up, doesn't it? When you purchased your home, you may not have been in a floodplain, but you may be in a floodplain now. Yeah. So just because the disclosure says no and the MLS says no, it's not a guarantee. There is a flood map. Again, all of these things are, they fall back on the buyer to verify and you working with your buyer's agent, because the buyer's agent can't obviously be, we're not all knowing, but there are sites that we can direct you to. And I think the number one key for that is getting with your insurance company right out of the gate and knowing what your insurance is going to cost, because your insurance company should be the one who flags that if no one has had insurance or flood insurance in the past, and now it's required. So I love that one. Yeah. Okay.
Well, that is the other thing I get asked about is insurance, just because the prices of it have gone up significantly the last couple of years. Even ours went up quite a bit. So that's something that people want to check into. Again, like you said, the seller might have gotten that house when the rates were lower or whatever, and so the cost might not necessarily be the same for you, but sometimes finding out who provides the insurance, especially if it's like a mobile home or if it's like a funky house that not just the average insurance place is going to cover, then that's when the buyers are usually like, wait, who insures this house?
Yes, absolutely. Because sometimes you have like a partial underground home, or some kind of a shipping container, partial, or an added-on mobile. So I think that that's a great point. And recently I was chatting with a young investor about insurance, and someone starts schooling me on what's happening, which is basically that the cost has gone up significantly. So I do think it's a really important aspect of knowing what your mortgage is going to be, because that insurance cost, let's just say I said $40, and someone schooled me and said she thinks it's going to be closer to $80 because prices have gone up. Yeah. So I think that's very, very important to be aware of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. What else do you have?
Let's say I said flood info. Occasionally I get asked especially if it's like a vacant land situation, I get asked for a topography map.
Oh, topo map is what I call them, because I have trouble saying that word.
Topography, yeah.
Topography. Oh, I said it. Okay.
Good job.
There you go.
Yeah, or topo map is usually what people say. Yeah. So, and sometimes we can get on the same site that we use for like the floodplain and all of that. But again, it's not always super duper accurate, and really you just got to go out to the property and hike it.
Absolutely. That, and Google Earth, which as realtors, we're not allowed to do that aspect for you in case Google's wrong, but we can send you there and tell you to check it out. And the reason that's important is the amount of dirt work that might need to happen. I had a young family one time that was in contract on this beautiful, gently rolling lot. And when the builder came in and gave them a bid, it was going to be $35,000 of dirt work because even though it was gently rolling, it was about a 6-foot fall on where they wanted the house. So this end of the house and this end of the house, so they were going to have to build it up and bring in all of that dirt. And they were like, okay, well, we're not going to build now. So
Yeah, this depends
kill the
on
deal.
what you're using it for.
Right, but it's better to know before you buy
Yes.
than after, because that would have, for their budget, that would have been, a horrible situation for them.
Definitely. I think the only other thing I have is survey.
Survey. Okay, so how many times are you standing on the property and they're like, is that building on the property or not on the property?
So many times.
Yes. So rant, this is just for realtors if you're watching. For the love of goodness, please do an aerial and put in the property lines. Yes, you can put all day, every day asterisk. This is not a survey. But guys, here's the thing is I do find that a lot of times sellers have the survey, but just no one has thought to ask them. So if you are a seller, send the survey to your realtor and ask them to make it one of the documents or even one of the photos, right?
Yeah.
If you have a mortgage inspection report, an MRI, I always say MIR. See, I do know it. I just say mortgage inspection report. I love those because that shows the structures, right?
Yes.
And then you can also make offers contingent upon the results of either one of those.
Yeah.
So don't let it be a deal breaker. If you're just circling because you want that, then go ahead and move forward. Just make it part of the deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I'm going to see if I can stump you here.
Okay.
Okay, let me see. I had one that you did not have. Oh, that'll just make it 1-to-1 then. I guess I'm not winning. What about who owns that fence?
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh.
Nobody knows. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows who owns
Fences
the fence?
and retaining walls. Like,
Oh, retaining walls,
Not
yes.
as common with retaining walls, but
Right.
I do get asked that.
Who owns that?
Yep.
Just because the fence is on the property line, it doesn't mean that it's your fence. And just because it's facing out or facing in, right?
Yeah.
It's not a guarantee. Sometimes no one knows, and all we can do is say, just make friends with your neighbors.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer, though, I personally would never go in halvesies with a neighbor. You can, if they have a privacy fence or a chain link fence, you can set a post next to their post and tie in without actually tying to it.
Yeah.
But I don't recommend that if you share a side yard that you both pay half, because what happens when they sell the home and somebody else moves in and you want them, it gets weird.
And down or something.
Yeah, exactly. And we had a situation south of town where a dog kept busting through the fence, and it was a tenant. So the owner of the dog was a tenant, but the property owner next door kept saying, you need to pay for that. And it was just a big, big mess. And I don't want you paying attorney fees. Just buy the fence yourself. In the long run, that's cheaper.
Yeah,
so
that's true. That's good advice, Anna.
Yay. Okay, so we're even. Let's see. Okay, I think you had one I didn't have. I had one you didn't have.
Oh.
Yeah, score. Okay, so buyers, these are great questions to ask your buyer's agent. Remember now, you're signing an agreement with them to pay them for their services, and buyer's agents should be aware of some of these things. Don't come at us if we don't know the name of a tree or a plant. We're happy to ask the seller, but I think the number one thing I wanted to put out with this is because the rates are dropping, we do have inventory, but not as much as we had 45 days ago. It's kind of a weird situation. The minute the rates drop, homes start selling. But what I find is you can make an offer contingent upon these items.
Yeah.
You can state, I will pay you X amount of dollars for the home at 123 Banana Street. However, seller to answer these 5 questions during the 10-day inspection period.
Yeah.
That makes way more sense than you absolutely love the home, but you want the answers before you move forward. Because, and we've just had this happen where someone looked at a home last Tuesday, a new buyer came in and wanted to see the home on Thursday, and they were told, well, you can't see it over the holiday weekend, check back on Tuesday. Guess what? On Tuesday, the home was sold. The buyer got upset and said, well, how did it sell if nobody could look at it over the weekend? Well, it was the buyer from the previous week, right?
Yeah.
So they had already been in the door and were not waiting around. So,
Yeah.
so don't necessarily wait for the answers. You can make that part of your contract.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
For sure. I was actually going to say that if you have a bunch of answers that you're not necessarily going to get that day, to go ahead and make the offer. You can ask those questions during your inspection period. You're going to do inspections and all that anyway. Because you're going to be so mad if another buyer comes in and gets that house before you do.
And you don't know if they've already looked at it 3 days ago and are already deciding.
Yeah,
So,
or already negotiating something.
Yes.
Like, you just never know. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
make the offer, guys.
Take the offer. End of story. Yay. Okay, Joy, thank you for popping in today. I appreciate that. I'm going to have to think of more questions to beat you next time. Let us know what questions you would want to know if you were a buyer, what questions you would ask. Now, some of the things that you're probably thinking of are probably already on the state property condition disclosure. We didn't go into that at all, but these are items that are not automatically covered. They're not required to be answered up front. And that's why sometimes as your buyer's agent, we have no way of knowing unless the listing agent did a thorough job and got that information up front like we do here. So, okay, everyone, please like, follow, and share. Send your questions of what you would want to know as a buyer to Joy, and she can add those to her list to stump me next time. Or if you are looking to buy or sell, please reach out to one of us. We would love to help you. And as always, thanks for watching. Bye, guys.